Hey there, it's Yolanda and Meg
Hi.
back. After the Kailash Kora, we're in Saga today, and we just wanted to check in about how we're feeling. We're kind of been tracking our physical condition, I guess, along the way. And there's good news and bad news. So the good news is that we finished the Kailash Kora with no problems. We had an excellent time. It's a 3-day thing over pretty much 10 miles a day at a very high altitude. How did you feel?
Overall, I was amazed how well I felt. I didn't feel like I really had any altitude sickness or symptoms. Main thing was a little difficulty sleeping at times and some breathlessness with exertion, but no nausea or headaches. Good energy.
Me too. And I think I had maybe one night I had a slight headache and maybe a little bit of nausea somewhere on the trek. And I just, I took some Tylenol PM and I took some ibuprofen, I believe. And had a great sleep and I was really good to go. Climbing climbing up to the 18,500 foot Domo Lap Pass was surprisingly not easy, but it was a lot of exertion and there was like a lot of breath involved. I'll have some videos on showing us walking up to the pass, so there's a lot of heavy breathing. It's very normal, but we didn't have any problems at all. Why don't you talk a little bit about the woman that we ran into up there?
Yeah, so part of the way up Domo La, there was a woman. She didn't speak English. We assume she was Chinese, and she was taking like 3 steps and then leaning forward over her walking stick. Her friend was supporting her behind her. Her eyes were closed. Her gait, her walking was pretty unsteady. She didn't appear to be drinking any water, eating anything, and her layers were pretty minimal. So our guide actually at first saw there was a problem, hung out with her, kind of stood behind her to support her, tried to encourage her. And eventually, as we almost got to the Domo Lap Pass, she started dry heaving, and I stood up and started
Meg's
to
a
help.
nurse practitioner, as a reminder.
And so I sort of got her warm layers, forced her to drink some water. We actually gave her some of our oxygen for about 5 minutes, and that instantly had an effect, brought color back to her face, made her open her eyes, and forced her to eat some sugar. And I threw my down jacket on her, and she got up and then just started walking. And then we instructed her friend to get her down as soon as possible. But it was definitely an eye-opening situation where they were alone. They didn't have a guide with them. They seemed very unprepared for the altitude and the conditions because it was snowing on us a little bit. And it was a little scary at one point.
It was very scary just seeing her, and it was a pretty freaky experience actually, because I've had this experience at Everspace Camp before when somebody else was in trouble. And because you're at that altitude, I think Meg did amazing. And because we were pretty acclimated, we were thinking clearly. But the last time when I was at Everspace Camp and somebody else was in trouble, my own thinking was so cloudy that I didn't realize that the person was in trouble. And even this time, you're so out of your element.
Yeah.
We're climbing from 16,600 to 18,500. It's snowing. Everything's completely new and different. And you're not in a space where you feel like you can make good decisions. And the very first time we saw this woman, we felt afraid. She was clearly in bad shape. There was something wrong. But she didn't have a guide.
We didn't speak her language.
We didn't speak her language. And actually, the first time I saw her, I thought she didn't look so good, but I didn't fear for her life or anything. But as time went on, it became very clear that she was in trouble. And so we were asking our guides, just to be frank, we were asking our guides, doesn't this woman need to get down? She seems like they're in trouble. And their perception, they were helping her a lot, but their perception of the situation was very different than ours. Our feeling was that she was physiologically heavily impaired.
Mm-hmm.
And theirs was that that her body was okay, but she was having mental problems getting up the hill.
She was just weak of mind.
Yes.
And just needed some hard pounding on the back.
Yeah.
And to be told, it's only, this many steps to the top, you just need to buck up and go.
Yeah. And that was pretty scary. And that went on, it takes a while to get up the pass. So after some period of time, I said again to another guide, I said, don't you think she should get down? Like even though it's not my business, it's, if I were the mountaineer guide, I would be like, get down now,
you would be. Yeah.
But it wasn't my place to say that. And that's what's scary about it. There's nobody up there who can make a decision for you. So for my one takeaway from this was get a guide. Like, don't go up there by yourself.
Yeah.
Like they were so unprepared and they were, they needed somebody in charge of them to do this. And fortunately for them, our guides and Meg helped this woman. I myself was getting up the pass just fine, but I didn't have any juice to help somebody else.
Yeah.
I'm like, I was making it just great, but I didn't have the extra oomph to help another person. But, in the end, my guide said, we're close to the top, which was actually still a couple hundred feet.
There was a false summit.
Right?
It actually wasn't as close as it looked.
It was, and they knew that, but it's like, they said we were close to the top and it's actually very steep down. So better for her to get up there and get down. It'll take longer to get the same altitude down the way we came. And in my not knowingness, I was like, okay, well I guess that makes sense. But anyway, that was a pretty freaky situation. I honestly thought that the woman might die. Mm-hmm. I really, it could have happened. And thank God she was fine. Yeah. So anyway, we get over the Domo Lap. Mm-hmm. Everything's great. We get down. We sleep at Zudupul Monastery. We're pretty good.
Yeah, we were fine. I didn't sleep great, but it was, and we're up above 16,000 feet. So yeah.
Normal, not to sleep great,
Mm-hmm.
Totally normal, nothing going on with us. Then we get down to Darchen, and my expectation is like, great, we're back down to only 15,000 feet. We're going to sleep great. But we didn't. You want to talk about that one?
Well, yeah, so it's interesting. We were both around 3 a.m. Yolanda, I could hear Yolanda getting up, and I had been sleeping fitfully. I'd been sort of almost having sleep apnea. Like I would wake up, and because I felt like I couldn't, almost like air hunger, I couldn't get my breath. And I'd take a few deep breaths, sort of catch up, and then I would fall asleep again because I was exhausted. And it felt like minutes later I was back up again, sort of gasping for air. And it was actually causing a lot of anxiety. And so Yolanda just happened to sort of say, Meg, are you awake? And I was like, yes. And we both realized we were having this experience. And at 3 a.m. we were trying to figure out what happened, like what could have possibly caused this,
and what's wrong, and how serious is it?
Right.
It was pretty scary, I have to say. I don't know how to say this. I'm a pretty vigilant person, but I don't panic normally. And I felt panicked. I thought, oh, I'm having a panic attack, because I couldn't breathe. I couldn't catch a good breath.
Right.
And I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know how serious it was. I didn't know if it was going to progress. It was like, were we at first by myself in the dark at 3 a.m. going, am I having a heart attack? Am I having a stroke? Am I having HAPE, HAPE, HSCE? I didn't know. And so I was kind of running through all these little scenarios in my mind. And then finally, I was kind of embarrassed. So I think this is kind of thing that happens at altitude. You just I was embarrassed. I was having a fairly scary physical moment, but I was embarrassed to say, hey, Meg, Are you awake? Can I just say what's going on? And as soon as I did, she's like, me too. Yeah. I was like,
it was
are
really
you
wild.
kidding?
Yeah.
And she's like, yes. And I'm feeling really anxious about it too. So we sat up. Meg was wonderful. And so we did 3 or 4 things that I guess helped us. I mean, it seemed very reasonable to do. Because we weren't mentally impaired, it seemed. We were, besides being pretty scared.
Yeah.
Meg suggested that we take some ibuprofen, that we take another acetazolamide, and that we sit up and drink some water. Anything else?
Yeah, just hydrate more because we got a little lazy. It was our, we came down from the mountain and then we're just, taking it easy. And then, but Yolanda, you had a really good idea of contacting her friend who has a lot of experience at high altitude.
Who I want to give a shout out to, Jamin at the Land of Snows. We chatted him in the middle of the night, of course, the middle of the day for him, but he got back in touch with us and just kind of gave us a check-in about what he thought we should do. And it was very normalizing to hear that. First of all, he said, it's not really normal what you're experiencing. And then he said, I suggest you take these yoga breaths, which anyone who's planning to go to high altitude, I think is good to do. And which is just like breathing deeply in through your nose, like really deep, like way into your lungs. And then like forcing the air out through pursed lips as much as you can. So doing a lot of those breaths, and there's something about that. It's good.
And mountaineers use it. It's called pursed lip breathing. So it's a technique that's known to help you re-oxygenate more efficiently instead of just hyperventilating by just taking a lot of breaths and not being very effective and taking in oxygen. So we started doing that.
He had some other suggestions. Oh, he said, take some oxygen. And see, this is another thing of like a ridiculous thought, I think, is like our guides were in the same guest house with our oxygen, and we could have said, yo, sorry, it's 3. It turns out they were awake at 3 a.m. But it's like, yo, sorry, we're kind of scared. Can we have some of the oxygen now? And we weren't sure actually for a long time if it was a good idea to take the oxygen. But I think it's probably, if you're having some kind of altitude moment, it's probably a good idea to take some oxygen. And I want to speak briefly about that too. It's like the last few times I've been in Tibet, and also this time, until this time, I've had a little bit of like, I don't know how to describe it, except a little bit of a kind of a macho attitude of like, well, I'm not taking oxygen because just wussies take oxygen, and that would just be dramatic people taking oxygen, and I don't want to take oxygen unless it's necessary. But it's become very clear to me. It's like you are always deprived of oxygen when you're in Tibet. So you're not a wimp or a wuss if you take some oxygen. It's okay. For myself, I've decided it's okay if I take some oxygen. So tonight we ask our guide to leave the oxygen with us. And so if we have this experience again, and actually we talked about another thing that we asked Jomin was, is there a path that we can get lower? Because it seemed really clear that we kind of needed to get lower faster. And it turns out it's not. We're way the hell out Western Tibet, and we need to get, we're in Saga now, which is a good 8 hours.
Yeah.
Long drive, and another long drive to the next place. So not safe for your driver to be exhausted driving this far. So, we're just doing the yoga breathing. We're hydrating. We're supposed to be.
We're trying.
And we have our oxygen tonight. And we're better prepared. Like we know, I don't think I don't think I'll freak out as much if I realize what's happening, and knowing that we survived the night, and knowing that we're okay, and that we have oxygen if we need it.
Yeah. And I think also we would use it for, 5 or 10 minutes max. It's not something we would be sleeping with. We're really, going to be using it just if we need it and we have this experience again.
Yeah, I think so. So we just wanted to check in that, and we sincerely hope today we're at, again, 15,000, 300. And tomorrow I think we're down to either 14 or 13, whatever it is. It's like 1,000 less than here. It's got to be good. So, and then from there, we're going down and down, because we're not sleeping at Everest Base Camp. We're on our way to Everest, but we are not sleeping at Everest Base Camp. And as somebody who slept at Everest Base Camp, I don't recommend that anybody sleeps at Everest Base Camp. Nobody's going to sleep well. If you want to say that you slept at Everest Base Camp, great, but it's kind of a ratty experience. It's great to see the mountain, but just like go there, get out, sleep somewhere else. That's my recommendation about that. Anything else?
No, I think that's it.
Okay. So just checking in, trying to be real, letting you guys know that even with the very best acclimatization plans, which I feel very happy, very solid about our acclimatization plans. They helped us get up the hill with really a lot of joy that day too. And just leave you that thought. I thought climbing up the Domo Lap Pass was going to be an endurance test. I really did. I thought it'll be exciting, it'll be this and that, but it'll be an endurance test. And we were just laughing. We had a great day.
Yeah.
It was
It
beautiful.
was amazing.
Yeah.
Even though we never saw Mount Kailash.
No.
It was hidden in the clouds, but it was magical.
Yeah, it truly was a wonderful thing. And I attribute a lot of that to feeling good at altitude. So that's it. Check in again soon when we have some other series of towns or altitudes to talk about. Bye.
Bye.